fell by 6.2 percentage points. If you do the same numbers for emerging markets, interestingly enough, the loss is 6.6 percentage points. You see negative numbers, much larger negative numbers in the north because they started from a lower growth rate. But the difference between growth rates was about the same, which is interesting. So it affects everybody. A firm in Wall Street, the only one that goes under immediately after that, the big insurance company is bailout, and the central banks and the fiscal authorities continue sending very strong signals that they will not let anybody big anymore fall. So why was that important? I think that's, for me, that's another piece of evidence where the financial sector, we have to understand that much better, and it looks much more like a bank run. Okay, now I don't have a lot of time to go into details, but what I do here is I have domestic sudden stop. These are the credit sudden stops that I was talking about, and NBI recessions for the United States. Let me just focus on this last one. This is a subprime episode. The blue shaded region, which goes all the way down here, is the NBR recession, as recorded by the NBR. The previous recession was the dot-com recession. And this is the region where you have a domestic credit sudden stop in the United States. So you see sudden stops both here and here. And so contrary to what some economists were saying in the US, looking at stocks, if you look at flows, you see a sudden stop of flows in the United States, starting earlier than Lehman, as I will show in a moment. For emerging markets, Lehman is a cutting point. And there was another one here, but I don't want to elaborate on that. So you see evidence of a credit sudden stop. If you do that for Chile, and I choose Chile because it's the stellar performer in Latin America. So I do the same computation, and the shaded region is sudden stops. We measure sudden stop as a cut in flows, which is more than 2 standard deviations below its mean. You see, this is 2 standard deviations. So for Chile, it's almost 4 standard deviations, which is remarkable. So here you have a very solid economy being hit very badly. Actually, it's the worst hit in Latin America, together with Argentina. But if you do the same for Brazil, you don't get it. For Peru, you don't get it. However, for Chile, you do. So this would require a lot of research. But what I find it, the only point I want to stress is that we, as economists, put a lot of emphasis on fundamentals. And if you ask an economist walking in the street, what about Chile? He would say, oh, that's a very strong economy, the fundamentals are strong, and I would agree with them. So the question is, why was it so badly hit by credit crunch? Well, from a purely financial point of view, you can conceive perfectly well that that might happen, because this is a financial phenomenon, and maybe the country that is more integrated with the world is going to be more likely to be hit because it's part of the system. And by the way, that's a big challenge. We are talking about globalization. Globalization without a stable financial system is going to be very hard. And politically it will be very hard to defend. If every once in a while you have these big shocks, people become unemployed for reasons that nobody understands, except for the fact that some bad guys in the financial sector stop lending, you're going to have a hard time explaining that to your constituencies. So we better understand it, and we better find some solution for that. So that's the main point that I wanted to make with that. Now, just to give you a sense of how important this was, I computed, so we can focus on emerging markets, the share of countries that were hit by these sudden stops. Here you have two sudden stops. The sudden stop in capital flows, which we have. This is a traditional, if you will, sudden stop, and the sudden stop in domestic credit. There is some association between the two. We need to do more research about that. But what's interesting is that Lehman caused sudden stop both of a traditional and the new type, and the share of countries that were hit by this was the largest from 1992. So in all of this, along this time, there have been lots of sudden stop episodes and crises in emerging market. Well, this is the worst. It's very interesting, I find, because notice that prior to Lehman, they were doing quite well. You don't see evidence of sudden stop before Lehman. Actually, the opposite is true. So Lehman is the one that sort of coordinates these shocks and makes it really hit these economies. It's also true for advanced economies, by the way. It's even more impressive, the increase here. So Lehman ended up playing a pivotal role there. And what's interesting, again, that reinforces the view that the financial bank run approach is relevant for this, is that the recovery after Lehman, when the monetary authorities and the fiscal authorities showed that they would not let this happen, again, the recovery was fast. Look at the evidence. These are spreads, external financial spreads for emerging markets, all the emerging markets. So you see, if you want to look at spreads, you can look at spreads here. These are the spreads. You see that there is no evidence of a crisis. If you look at the spreads go up here, by the way, because interest rates in the US are going down. If you look at yields, you don't see any evidence of a crisis until Lehman. Then Lehman takes place, and there's a very sharp increase now. Central banks go back to action, and it goes down, and we are basically back where we were before Lehman. So this is very strong evidence, I believe. For the stock market, you also see a recovery. This is not updated, but this continued going up. So again, you see that there is some relationship, not as sharp with Lehman, but Lehman obviously had something to do with the collapse, and now the recovery. Commodity prices too. There is some evidence that after Lehman, at least, there was not further deterioration. And when you look at GDP growth, these numbers come from the World Economic Outlook, IMF World Economic Outlook. The forecast for 2009, you see, negative for advanced economies and much lower for emerging markets. So there's a very sharp fall here. This is the 6% that I was talking about before in 2009. So Lehman seemed to have produced this real sector effect, very negative real sector effect, which is in line with the view that credit markets are at work here. So bottom line, what I just said,